So the epithelial tissue is divided into epithelia and glands. So epithelia is usually for protection, and glands are for secretion. So now let's talk about the specific criteria and characteristics of epithelial tissue that are different from other types of tissue. The first one is called polarity, so it means that one side is different than the other side. So if you can see it here, you can have microvilli or cilia there. This is on the internal side, for example, in the wall of the hollow organs. And on the other side, you have a basement membrane, this is called basal surface, and that is connecting epithelial tissue to a connective tissue, or you can have another epithelial tissue here. So this is a two different surface that is this is a little bit different. Then is attachment to the basal membrane. So this is the lowest part. If there is a epithelial tissue can have one or more than one layer. So the lowest layer or the deepest layer is attached to a type of connective type of tissue, or a structure, I should say, not tissue, a structure that is separating epithelial tissue from the connective tissue. So it's located here, and the basal surface is attached to that area. The third one is called cellularity. So it means that there are multiple epithelial cells. They are attached side by side, so are on top of each other. So because one of the function of epithelial tissue is protection, so you can see that these cells are attached to each other in different areas. These are the attachments, so many of them are attached side by side or on top of each other. Avascularity means that there is no blood vessels, so it's, the nutrients are going to epithelial tissue through diffusion. And regeneration is because epithelial tissue are exposed to physical, chemical, and biological trauma. They have to regenerate, and they are continuously made in the body. So once they are destroyed, newer ones are made. To maintain the cellularity, these cells should be connected to each other, and there are different mechanisms for that. So this is why it's called how the integrity of the epithelium are kept, because there are different reasons for it. The first one is called intercellular connection, so the connection between neighboring cells. So there is two different mechanisms here. One is called the large area of the plasma membranes of two cells that are attached to each other. So if you look at this one, this is an epithelial cell, and there is another epithelial cell here, and this is a plasma membrane here in the middle, and they are attached to with each other. How they are attached to each other? By these three things. So this is still a adhesion molecule, which is with a protein. It's like a transmembrane protein. I will show it to you later. Intercellular cement, which is around here, and intercellular cement is also made of proteoglycans. So one of the examples of the proteoglycans is hyaluronan or hyaluronic acid, which is glycosaminoglycan or GAG, which is a complex carbohydrate. Proteoglycan itself is made of proteins, and some carbohydrates are attached to that, and an example of that is hyaluronan. And I put an example of a wall, so you can see these bricks. These bricks are like similar to cells, and in between you have this cement in between. So this is how they are connected to each other, so the wall will not fall. And this is the cement is in the between is similar to these three mechanisms that you can see it here. So these bricks are attached and keep it very strong, and it does not disintegrate. If you just put these bricks on top of each other, it can break easily. So that's why you need to have something in between to connect them together. Okay, so we are still in the intercellular junction. So the second mechanism for intercellular junction is called cell junction. There's three different types of cell junctions. One is called the tight junction. Here you can see that this is one cell membrane, and here is another cell membrane, and they are connected with each other with these proteins. So these are the tight junctions proteins. So it prevents movement of fluid from one side to another side. So if this is one cell here, and this could be a tubule of a hollow organ. So for example, here is urine. It will prevent movement of urine back to the blood. So this is how it prevents that. Or and this is also, you see that you can see that in the kidney, or another example, you can see that in the nervous system. So nervous system also protected by these tight junctions. So the second type of cell junction is called the gap junction. Here is just the opposite of tight junction. So you have these proteins that are connecting two cells. So this is one cell membrane here. This is another cell membrane here. And these are the proteins that are connecting two cells. So this is it's an opening here in between. There's an opening. These are called the connexons. So these proteins are called connexons, so transmembrane proteins. So ions, for example, sodium can pass through it, and also a small lipid soluble can pass through it. A good example of a gap junction, you can see it in the cardiac muscle cells, that sodium can pass through from one cell to another cell, and then multiple muscle cells contract at the same time. But you can also see gap junctions in different type of epithelial tissue. Then the third type of the cell junction is called desmosome. Desmosome is a connection in different area of the cell body. Usually it can be between the wall of the two cell body, or it can be the base of a epithelial cell with another type of cell, or it can be with a basement membrane. So based on that, you have two types of desmosome. One is called the spot desmosome, and the second one is called hemidesmosome. The spot desmosome means that the two cell walls are connected side by side, or the two cell walls are connected on top of each other. I'm talking about the epithelial cells. So example, you can see in this image, you can see this is one cell wall, this is another cell wall here, and they are connected with each other by these cell adhesion molecules. So these are the transmembrane proteins, and they are interlocking each other. So they are connected with each other. These cell adhesion molecules are attached to another structure that's called dense area, and the dense area is supported by the intermediate filaments, one on each side, and this is why it's called a spot desmosome. But if it is only in one side and the other side is not there, then that is called hemidesmosome. So I will show you the hemidesmosome here. So the second mechanism for keeping the cells together is called the basement membrane attachment. So here is the epithelial cells that are, if they are only one layer, so they can attach directly to the basement membrane. If there are multiple layers of epithelial tissue, then the deepest layer will attach to the basement membrane. So the basement membrane is made of two different layers. One is called the clear layer. This one, that's the clear layer, and this is from the secretion coming from epithelial tissue, and this is called lamina lucida. This is how it is spelled. And the second one is called the dense layer, and this is a lot of fibers there. These fibers are provided by the connective tissue, and this is called lamina densa. And so both of these layers together, then it makes the basement membrane. So going back to the hemidesmosome, you can see that this whole area, for example, this whole area, this big one, will be an epithelial cell, and this is the base of that epithelial cell, and then that base is attaching to the basement membrane through this hemidesmosome. So these are the cell adhesions molecules are here, these ones, and they are attached to this area, and now these are the intermediate filaments. So it's only from one side. So this other side, you do not have epithelial tissue, you have connective tissue. This is why it's called hemidesmosome, not spot desmosome. Spot desmosome is if you have two epithelial cells connected to each other. Okay, so the third mechanism for keeping the epithelia together, that is regeneration. That regeneration happens from stem cells, and these stem cells are called germinative cells also. So they are located in the basal layer, so the deepest layer, the cells that are on top of the basement membrane, and they are making new cells. And when the new cells, they become more superficial, and they are destroyed, and then the new cells are formed. So this happens throughout life. So another topic is the classification of epithelia. Epithelia are divided based on the shape or based on the layer, but usually when you name them, you combine both of them together. So here you can, based on the layer, you can say it's one layer. If there's one layer, then this is called simple. One layer is called simple. So you can see one layer of cells, one layer of cell here, one layer of cell here. And based on the shape, there's three different type of shapes here. This is the flat one. The flat one is called the squamous. This is the cuboidal, square shape. So this is called cuboidal. And these are the tall ones, and these are called the columnar. So if you combine both of them together, so the first one is called simple squamous epithelium, which means it's one layer and it's flat. The second is called simple cuboidal epithelium, which means one layer, but it is square shape. Third one is called simple columnar, which is one layer, but these are the tall shape epithelial cells. The second type is stratified. It means there is multiple cells on top of each other. That's called stratified. And again, based on the cell shape, then subdivided into different types. So this is the squamous one. So these are the flat ones that you can see. This one is called stratified squamous. So don't look at this part because this part looks cuboidal, but when they name them, they usually name them based on the more superficial layer. So the second one is this is a stratified column cuboidal, which means it's more than one layer there, and they are cuboidal in shape or square in shape. And the third one is called a stratified columnar, although the deeper layer looks cuboidal in shape, but the superficial layer is columnar in shape. So stratified means what? Multiple layers, but based on the superficial layer, they usually divide them into squamous, cuboidal, or columnar. So now a little bit more detail about each type. These are very important. They will be tested in exams, so please make sure to know these things very well. So simple squamous epithelium, this is for absorption, secretion, and diffusion. So the secretion that they make is they're secreting fluid that is very slippery, so that will reduce friction, and that is between different organs that are mobile, so that will reduce damage to those organs. Where are they located? One is called mesothelium. Mesothelium is located in the body cavities. So there are three different body cavities. One is that the pleura, and that's surrounding the lungs. The other one is called pericardium, that is surrounding the heart. And there is another one that is covering the abdomen, that's called peritoneum. So I will show you these things again later. And this will be discussed in more detail in the lab 1. There's also other body cavities, but they are covered by different type of cells, so they are not called mesothelium. Another example is endothelium. So endothelium is covering the blood vessels and also the heart, the inner layer of the heart. You can also see simple squamous in the kidneys, in the lungs, and this is where the gas exchange takes place. In the kidneys, this is where the filtration of the blood take place, that different chemicals and fluid is leaving the blood, and also in cornea, which is in the eyes. So you can see it in different type of tissue. And this is an example of the simple squamous. So the border is a little bit crooked. It's not very smooth and straightforward. This is the nucleus located in the center of it, and this is another example of the simple squamous. Sometimes simple squamous epithelial tissue can be confused with adipose tissue, but I will show you the adipose tissue is a little bit different than this. You might say that how come this is simple squamous, because it is so many layers on top of each other. It's not on top of each other. It's actually taken from a superior view. So if you take it from side view, it is a very thin layer. But this is taken from above. This is why it looks multiple layers. Now is a stratified squamous, and you can look at it here. This example here. This is the stratified. So these are the cuboidal shaped, but as you go higher and higher, the cells become flatter, and that's why it's squamous. But because there's so many layers are there, and that's why it's called a stratified squamous epithelium. So this is for protection. You can see that in the skin, you can see it in the mouth, in the esophagus, and the rectum and vagina. So anywhere there's a lot of friction going on there for protection against physical, chemical, or biological damage. This is why you have it here. And similar in this image, you can see this superficial layer is flatter. This area that you see, these cells are flat compared with these ones that are more cuboidal in shape. So you name them based on the superficial layer, and it's stratified because it's multiple layers of the epithelial cells on top of each other. This area that you see, this is connective tissue. So don't bother about this area, or this area that you see in this image. Don't bother about it for now. Okay, the cuboidal again divides into simple cuboidal and stratified cuboidal. You can see this is one layer, and this is a duct. This is empty inside. There's a cavity there. So this is the hollow organ that I was talking about it before. And this is one layer of the cuboidal epithelium, simple cuboidal. So this again, this is a duct similar to this one, and this is just one layer here. And if you see this one, this is not actually stratified, because this is another duct, and this is the hollow part of that duct. So this part is similar to this part. But here it looks like they are multiple layers, but they are not. So they are just separated from each other. Two ducts are side by side. So if you cut it longitudinally, this is how you get an image like this. But if you make a cross section, if you cut it like this, then you can get an image like that. So you can see these are simple cuboidal, one layer of cells, and this is the cavity, one layer of cells. This is the cavity here, this one layer. So where you see it in different ducts, for example, in the thyroid and pancreas that I was telling you before, different glands and different ducts of those glands, and also you can see it in the kidneys. So in a kidney, you can see simple squamous, but also simple cuboidal. The stratified cuboidal, that is for protection, secretion, and absorption. So you can see that these cells, this is the cavity here, this is the cavity, and this is one layer, and this is the second layer. So this is one layer, this is the second layer, In this image, this is one layer, this is the second layer, this is one layer, this is the second layer, and also in this image, this is one layer, and this is the second layer. So here is multiple layers actually. Here, one layer here, and one layer. It's a little bit more difficult to see. Okay, so it covers some ducts in the body. Transitional is a little bit different. You can see this only in the urinary tract, so in the urinary bladder, urethra, and ureter, not in the kidney. Okay, I'm emphasizing again, not in the kidney. So if the urinary tract is collapsed, it means that there is no urine there. So these cells distend and have a balloon shape kind of appearance. You can see these ones, they're big in size. These cells big in size. They're ballooned up, so they're big because there is no pressure. But once there is urine there, the urine compresses these tissues, so you can see the urinary bladder is full. So now the same cells that were there now is compressed. So it looks like a squamous epithelium. The deeper layers are cuboidal, so that does not make a difference, but here is most of the cells compress here. So these balloon shape become flatter here because they transition from one shape to another shape, and then they are called transitional. You don't see this in other type of tissues. You do not see it in any other areas in the body. Okay, so simple columnar means that is one layer of the epithelial tissue that is tall shape. This is for secretion and absorption. So you see it in different parts of the body, and these are the tall shape cells. And in the middle you have the nucleus. Okay, in the middle. So this is usually this is a simple columnar. In the middle you have, because there's other type of the columnar epithelium that a little bit different. So looks, so the nucleus is in the middle. It may or may not have cilia. Okay, it may or may not have microvilli. It depends on the location. And again here you have these cells that are there. Okay. So they are located in the gastrointestinal system, in the stomach and intestine. You can see it in the gallbladder. Also, you see it in the fallopian and uterine tubes, and in the kidneys, and collecting ducts. Usually, collecting ducts is part of the kidney that urine is located there. The second type of the columnar is called pseudo-stratified columnar. It means that it looks like stratified, but they are not. Looks like, but they are not. So you can see these cells that are there, and you can see these ones. Actually, these are better examples that you can see it here. This is so some of these nuclei are in the middle, and some of these nuclei are here in the lower part. So these are in the lower part. So all of them are attached here in the basement membrane here. Okay, all of them are attached in the basement membrane. So this is called pseudo-stratified. Looks like multiple layer, but actually all of them are attached to the basement membrane. They are located in the respiratory tract, in the nose, and in the trachea, and also partially in the bronchi, and also in parts of the male reproductive system. You can see pseudo-stratified. And then is the stratified columnar. It means that a multiple layer of the epithelial tissue that are tall. So this is for protection mainly, and they are located in the throat, in some ducts, and also in the urethra. So not that common. So here you can see very clearly that these cells are cuboidal shape, and then the more superficial layer is the columnar. So this is the columnar one, this is the columnar one, and this is very typical layer of the cuboidal that you can see deeper. And similar here, so you can see columnar here and another columnar layer there. So both of them looks like columnar here in this tissue. Classification of the glands here. So there's two types of glands. One is exocrine gland and the other one is endocrine gland. I did not write it there. Exocrine glands usually drain directly, drain in the duct, and endocrine glands drain in the blood. So the type of secretions or mode of secretions here, one is called merocrine secretions. Here you have the cells produce the different secretions, and they are packed in these vesicles, and then the vesicles release. And these are the secretory vesicles inside the cell, and they are gradually released, and the cells will stay alive. So it's always alive. You can see that in the sweat glands, okay? And apocrine glands, the superficial layer of the cytoplasm sheds, so that breaks off from the rest of the cell. The cell stays alive, so it will continue to produce this. Also, you can see then a specific type of sweat glands. And holocrine gland, this is that the cell produce the secretions, it become bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally it ruptures. So when it ruptures, then the cells dies, and then new cells are formed there. So in these two, merocrine and apocrine, the cells will stay alive, and in the holocrine, usually the cells dies, but they have the stem cells that produce new cells. The other type of classification of the glandular epithelium is based on the secretions. Some of them produce serous fluid, that's called serous glands, and they are the fluid is very clear and very slippery, and they are located in the body cavities to reduce friction between two organs, usually the organs that are mobile. For example, the stomach and intestine, heart, and lungs. Mucus glands, these secretions are a little bit thicker. They are produced in the respiratory system and gastrointestinal system, and some of the exocrine glands are producing both serous and mucus secretions. Gland structure is another classification of the glandular epithelia. So that divides on the number of cells. One is called unicellular glands, and that means that there's only one cell at a time. They are randomly distributed in different parts of the epithelial tissue. They produce mucus, and these are called the goblet cells. So the good example of this is in the intestine and also in the respiratory tract. Then the second classification is called multicellular. It means it's made of multiple cells together that makes a gland. That divides again into the simple glands and compound glands. So simple glands means that they have only one duct, just one duct. Okay, just one duct. The secretion drains in one duct. Again, they divide based on how they look like. If they are, elongated, they are called tubular, or if they are spherical, they are called alveolar or acinine. So it's a little bit different based on shape. Also, just to make things more complicated, some of them are unbranched and some of them are branched. Like this one is not branched, it's just one of them. And this one you can see in the intestinal gland. Some of these ones are actually twisted, like this one. So this is, you see it in the sweat gland, merocrine sweat gland. This is called simple coiled tubular. So it's not just straight. and some of them is combination of the simple tubular. So this is the branched one. So one here, and one here. All of them drain in just one duct, and this is called simple branched. So this is simple branched, and this is simple unbranched. And where you see it, you see it in upper gastrointestinal system. For example, in the tongue, you can see it in the esophagus, in the stomach, and duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. Then the alveolar or acinar ones are two types. One is simple alveolar, which is not that important in adults, and simple branched one is, you can see it in the sebaceous gland that produce oil. So this is one gland here, one gland here, one gland here, but they have only one duct, and then the secretion goes to the surface around here. These are called compound ones, which means that they have more than one duct, and then those smaller ducts will drain in a bigger duct. So this is one duct here, and one duct here, and then they drain in this common duct. So that's why it's called compound. So compound divides into three different types. One is called compound tubular, because these are all elongated, similar to the branch ones. Branch tubular ones, but there are multiple branch tubular ones. So you see one branch tubular here, one branch tubular here, one branch tubular here. You see that in the mouth, you see it in the bulbourethral gland, which is part of the male reproductive system. It secretes a basic with a pH. I'm talking about the pH. It has a basic fluid that clears urethra. And also you see the endoseminiferous tubules. These are the ones that producing sperm. The second one is called compound alveolar or acinar. And you can see that this is spherical shape, but this is branched alveolar. So one branch alveolar here, one branch alveolar here. So they have their own ducts, and then they drain in a common duct. That's why it's called compound alveolar. So you see that the mammary gland or the female breast glands. And then is called compound tubular alveolar, which is a mix. So some of them are elongated, some of them are spherical. So it's a mix of the two, and they drain in a common duct. You see that in the salivary gland that is producing saliva, for example, in the mouth. And you see it in the respiratory system and also in the pancreas.